Shenanigans. Truth, lies, 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 shenanigans.
Oh yeah! Shenanigans. Truth, lies, 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 shenanigans. Oh yeah! Shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth,
lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Hey friends, welcome back to Truth Lies Shenanigans, the live show. My name is Neo, and I'll be your guide through all the shenanigans. My co-host for today's show, to my left, Miss Lizzie.
Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday, fun day. Hope you're safe and wearing those masks out there.
In the opposite corner, we have Jam.
Jam.
Word is born.
And right below me, we're looking at Z.
Hola, hola. Happy Sunday.
All right, for today's show, we have a first in a series of interviews of coronavirus patients, nurses, doctors, scientists, and testers, what we call the COVID Chronicles. Also, we'll talk about schools reopening and what that's looking like. Michelle Obama is dealing with depression, and the Trump administration giving our COVID relief monies to Chinese businesses. So a lot going on today. Remember, we're just about everywhere live: YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, at TLS Live Show. And as always, we love it when you join in the conversation. You can comment any of those live feeds, and we'll be listening and responding. All right? So hosts, before we get into the show, I have a dumb ask for you.
All right.
And Lizzie posted this on the Facebook page earlier, and I thought it was great. So I kind of want to know where you guys stand. What is your take on hugs going forward? Are you giving hugs out these days? Are you going to continue giving hugs? And if not, how has this impacted you and your life and stuff? So I'm gonna start with Lizzie since you posted it, Lizzie.
Hell no, I'm not hugging anybody, and I
No
don't
hugs
want
for you?
anyone. No.
Okay.
So I went to my first social distancing outing last weekend. My cousin's 95-year-old grandmother, we did something for her in the park. Everyone was perfectly, probably 10 feet apart. But I haven't seen her in a while, and she's 95. And my first inclination was to go in for the hug. And then we kind of both stepped back.
Yep.
And I got immediately sad. But I understand, we are still currently in a pandemic. It's not safe for me. She's 95. It certainly isn't safe for her. And I just don't want to compromise myself or anyone else. So I can wave, I can, do a little boop, boop, bounce or whatever, but no hugging for me. No hugging for
Jam,
me.
you giving hugs out?
Only to the ladies. So I found that not hugging your children on a regular basis builds character. So I'm definitely going to commit to that. I'm not hugging the pets because why? They're furry. And not that again, ladies, if there's anything wrong with furry. No, no, no hugs here. Like the only people I'm gonna hug are my family members who are mostly male, who I know hate hugging because it's fun to hug them anyway. So
All right. Z, you hugging?
low hug level.
You hugging?
Yeah, so I'm laughing because while we were waiting to start, I actually answered the question.
Oh, you did online?
And I was,
on the Facebook page?
Yeah, I was just answering it. It's like, yeah, I gave hugs to my family because it's not like I'm going home and sucking on my clothes. So, yeah, I gave hugs, and I just disinfect and do everything I've been doing. I don't think the hug is going to get me. Maybe it will. I don't know.
I was watching the John Lewis funeral, and there was an older lady. I think she had to be like 90s, 80s, 90s, whatever it was. And she was going around giving hugs to all the pastors and priests when she was walking up there. And I was like, whoa, that's bold. But I don't know. For me, I'm like, I'm giving hugs to my wife because I see her every day anyway. But right now, I don't know. I mean, and we had a 4th of July party, and we had all the little kids around, and man, the little kids kept trying to come up to me and hug me. I'm like, I'm sorry. I wanted to, man. It hurt me to my heart too. My little nieces and nephews. No, yeah. Man, it hurt me to my heart. I was so sad. So sad. Yeah, so sad.
No. My wife works with this one older guy who clearly needed to retire, and he'd be all up in everybody's face. Like Corona wasn't a thing at all. And everybody was like, hey, we don't want to be the one who gets blamed for whatever happens, guys. And it's just like a thing with him. So, yeah, no touchies.
All right. So no hugs all around. All right. So, guys, if you've never seen our show, let me tell you what Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans is all about. We'll be sharing our truths and opinions with you, calling out the lies, and pointing out the shenanigans going on. And on this show, we try to have a lot of fun with some shenanigans of our own. But we have one rule for the hosts: no cussing.
Cuss.
$10 penalty if you guys are caught cussing. If you're caught cussing 3 times on the same show, you'll be sending a love letter to this guy.
Beautiful letters.
Woo!
Great letters.
Wow. Look at that. $90, Liz.
$90?
Cheater.
Wow.
She was a serious cuss word in the last show. She was cussing. I mean, you got to write the cuss for that one, though. I give you credit, but it was worth the $10. It was worth the $10 for sure.
Coming from the person who doesn't have to pay it.
But just to let you guys know, we will be giving that money out to a deserving charity. We just haven't decided which one yet.
That's why I heard so much on the show, because it's all coming back to me. So yeah.
The House of Remy. The House of Remy.
All right. Everyone's clear on the rules. So, All right, so let's move on. Okay, so I know we've all been frustrated by people spreading those lies, people not taking this pandemic seriously and politicizing it and then it turning into now people watching more people die, right? So what TLS wants to do is get rid of the lies and shenanigans for a minute and just let you hear the truth. There's plenty of lies and misinformation in coronavirus. So Truth Lies Shenanigans brings you the truth. Stories directly from the people that lived it, frontline workers and survivors. This is the COVID Chronicles. Welcome. For the first in our series, we have Dr. Himabindu Elanadham. She's been a doctor for 10 years in the field of family medicine, born in New York to immigrants from India. She trained in the Bronx at Montefiore Medical Center and has been working at Columbia New York Presbyterian for the past 6 years in the hospital inpatient setting, where she treats patients and trains resident physicians. She also lives in the Bronx and spends most of her time outside of work with her 2 daughters. So, welcome, Dr. Elanadham.
Welcome.
How are you?
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, did I miss anything? Did I get it all right?
I think you got it all right.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
I want to just start it off. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do currently at Columbia New York Presbyterian?
Yes. So our hospital is a small community branch off of a very large hospital system of New York Presbyterian that exists in New York City. And there we take care of mostly adult patients, though our specialty takes care of all individuals, pregnancy, babies, children, adults, elderly, everyone. Our inpatient setting is only adults. And I work within Columbia's residency program for family medicine, where I train new docs within Columbia's family medicine program through their 3 years that they have of training to make sure that they are proficient in being able to care for patients in the hospital. And our hospital serves the Washington Heights Inwood community. If you don't know New York City very well, or Washington Heights, that's the uppermost part of Manhattan before you get into the Bronx.
Mhm.
And it is very, very diverse. Most of our population of patients comes from the Dominican Republic, but we have a smattering of all different types of people from all countries around the world. And that's part of what we love about our work. I get to practice and learn more Spanish every day. And that's just a little taste of what our hospital's like.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm glad we were able to get you on because, as we know, just a few months ago, New York was ground zero for the pandemic. At the height, New York was seeing like nearly 1,000 people dying every single day. So, can you describe a bit about what you were seeing during this time with your patients?
Yeah, I think the last Friday the 13th that we had, which was March the 13th, was the most memorable day for me. That's when I realized, like, oh, this is getting real now, and we are so unprepared, we're so behind, and we are going to lose so many people if we don't get our stuff together right now. In the context, people were just coming in with all kinds of symptoms that in our daily work, or even in my life, I have 2 kids under 5, like cough, runny nose, sore throat. Those are things that I see like 10 times a day on the regular. And now every one of those symptoms has taken seriously as potentially progressing to this deadly illness. And I realized so quickly on that day, when patients we had already had in the hospital for 5 or 10 days, they were like, hey, I have a little sore throat, I have a cough, and you've already been in here 10 times to see me, so have 10 other people. And now we don't have that many tests, we don't have any protective equipment yet. And I realized how quickly we could all be like wiped out with having unknowingly spread this illness to each other. And very quickly, in a couple of weeks, we lost so many people from not only in our patient population, but in our colleague circle, who had to be out on quarantine just because we didn't have the guidelines to be protected in terms of masks in every room, equipment in every room, and it was it escalated very quickly, and it was very unarming for people in medicine. We're very used to being in control and having plans and lists and things to check off, and it was very disarming.
How many patients would you say that you may have lost of your patients?
I've just been actually going through ours. Actually, on my watch, I lost about 30 people.
Wow. Wow. Lizzie?
What specific COVID training did they give you or your staff? Like, did they sit you guys aside and say, listen, this is going to be the new protocol. These are going to be the new steps that we take moving forward when someone comes into the hospital? Like, how did they prepare you guys for this pandemic?
We did have protocols, and they came too late. So in terms of
Mm.
preparedness, in the beginning, our New York State's first case, I believe, was in another small branch of New York Presbyterian, and they told us, it still seems manageable. Healthcare workers should be safe. Our nurses and our own doctors were told in our hospital, for specific patients who come in with certain symptoms or who have traveled to specific countries like China, which was what we were told, which turned out to not be useful at the
Right.
end of the day,
Yep.
Right.
which is a whole separate conversation. um, that only in those specific situations where you're talking or conversing or treating those patients do you have to wear masks, and only weeks later did everybody has to wear masks at all time. So the protocols came too late, and that's why I think at the beginning of the pandemic is where most health workers were exposed and most got sick and were out on quarantine.
So we have
And so
online. Oh, good.
sorry, go
I have a
ahead.
question. So we have online. Rupka says, "Thank you for your service. God bless you." Um, and I just want to let everyone know online. If you're online, please feel free to ask questions. We will be looking through and scanning, so feel free to ask your questions there. Lizzie, go ahead and continue.
I was just going to ask, so you mentioned, early on, like some of your fellow coworkers were getting sick or were exposed or what have you, so then they would have to quarantine. So then how do you fill those positions? Like, if a few doctors, nurses are out, is that it? Or is there like, a backup staff that's ready to come in? Like, how does that process work?
It's a good question. So it depends on where you're coming from. So family medicine in New York in general is a small entity, and is a small entity within our hospital as well. For example, I have 18 residents in our program, which is 6 a class. At any one time, my service is made up of 3 or 4 individuals outside of myself. So, if we all see one patient who has the virus and we were exposed, it could have wiped out our entire service very easily. I would say by nothing more than luck, we managed to survive, but we had to very quickly come together and make a plan as to how we were going to divvy up our literally person resources that we had available. And we had to shut down a whole bunch of other places in which people normally work within our department, whether it's the clinic or on other services, and get more bodies in to fill in, have more bodies on sick call if we needed backup, if someone was out sick. And all said and done, even with that system, we could have easily been wiped out
Wow.
very quickly.
Jam?
We got lucky. In the rest of the hospital, we had resources coming in. Like there were a bunch of travel nurses who were coming in who were wonderful, and we were so lucky to have them dedicate their service to helping these patients. So that's how, in brief, we dealt with it. But we got lucky.
Jam?
So I have a million questions for you, but this is gonna hit you with a more general question first because I'm curious. I was listening to an article, and they were saying that the amount of virus that you're exposed to likely determines how much of the virus you exhibit, how much you take on? Do you know anything about that at all? Do you?
Yeah, unfortunately, like a lot of medicine, but the coronavirus is a really good example of how humbled we should be as doctors, though I feel like many in my profession are often not. We know so little about the truth about this virus that any theory that you hold could be not true tomorrow, and that's true for like so many of the different treatments we tried at the beginning of our peak and at the end of our peak. I have also heard that virus will mount in terms of exposure and how much you're exposed to. That being said, I've seen a lot of other cases where, for example, 9-year-olds who had no contact with the outside world except for having their groceries delivered to the front door got sick and intubated and died. So,
Wow.
Oh my
it's
God.
there's a lot of different factors that are playing together, like what kind of conditions you have to start with that you're suffering from, chronic conditions, lung diseases, etc. How does your immune system react to things like normal allergies at baseline? Even those kinds of things play a role in terms of how your immune system is going to react. What we're finding out more and more is that a lot of why this disease is so horrible is because of the inflammatory response that is created in your body and how that can literally kill you while trying to fight at the same time.
Huh.
Z,
That's like the shortest answer.
Yeah.
good answer.
So I think I have a ton of questions too, but I think the one that's most pressing on my mind is, are hospitals and medical facilities ready and prepared for the second wave? And if so, how are they preparing?
Great question, Z.
I think we are trying to prepare. We have had preliminary meetings that involve everybody that should be involved: social workers, our nurses, our doctors, our admin, as to what should be done the next time around. I'd say we are somewhat prepared, but nobody really knows what the second wave is going to look like. And ultimately, the biggest problem that we have is the communities in which our patients are coming from. They are not equipped to handle the disease, for one. Number two, prevent the spread.
Wow.
It's an underserved urban environment. Social distancing, I heard you guys say there's so many people who don't want to wear masks or who want to continue to get together in person, but social distancing is a privilege for many of the patients in our communities. They don't have the luxury of being able to quarantine off in a space by themselves because whatever, they live with 6 other people, they share a bed with 2 other people. Just that's the way it is in New York.
Wow.
And in these communities.
So, I read that one of the ER doctors at your hospital, Lorna Breen, who treated coronavirus patients, committed suicide.
Yes,
Did you know Dr. Breen?
I did.
And how did that affect you, and how did it affect the other nurses at the hospital?
Um, I think we're all still being impacted. It didn't seem real when it happened, and I think her family has taken quite a bit of time to tell her story. You've seen the New York Times articles about her story. But what she described in those few days that she was back after recovering from the virus herself, and I say recovered like this because I don't really believe that she ever truly recovered. Um, a little bit of a side note, we're finding out that this disease has so many neuropsychiatric effects.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah, I'm
that.
sure. Sure.
I think the one that has been put out there a lot is stroke, which is true, but that's just one small subset of the neuropsychiatric complications that can happen. And I think that this virus, on top of course, the other real issues of, total loss of control and seeing all of this death in the ER and and all of that, I think that the virus also impacted her in a way that made her not able to handle from a psychological standpoint,
How are you able
which
to
is
handle it?
frightening.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that we're really handling it. I guess we're just getting lucky by surviving each day. I think, my daughters help a lot because their innocence is really healing in some ways. I was petrified when this whole thing started. My younger daughter was 4 or 5 months old, and I'm inundated in this virus. I have two parents in their 70s, 40 minutes away. I'm breastfeeding, so how do you socially distance from that? And really know what to do. So I tried to figure out the best protocol I could in terms of coming home, washing the clothes and burning water and showering, whatever. And I think, you're forced at the end of the day with a 5-month-old and a 4-year-old to draw pictures on the ground, and in some ways that really helps to at the very least distract you from everything else going on.
Lizzie?
No, so I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming in on our website. And so we have a question from Mike Winter, and he's asking, from your point of view, are people who had COVID, are they getting reinfected, really getting it twice? What is the story with that?
For the most part, we have not been seeing people get reinfected. That being said, I think it's too early to tell
Mm-hmm.
whether people are going to get
Because
reinfected
sometimes the
or.
antibodies take a little while to develop, or to take, or they may give you 6 months of protection, and then
Exactly. So the timing of how long antibodies will last is a question mark. The other problem is, with the whole reason the whole question from China didn't work is that it was a different strain of this virus. And so viruses are smart. They mutate, and just because you're exposed to one brand of this virus doesn't mean you can't get impacted potentially in a worse way from another. So the security that we unfortunately all banked on from having gotten it one time doesn't necessarily hold in terms of
And I
helping
think
you to
that,
feel safe.
and I think that's a key point that you just made about how viruses take on different forms. They, form different strains. And I try to explain that every year to people who talk about the flu and the flu shot, and why this flu shot may not work this year. And I'm just like, well, because the strain is different. Like, viruses mutate. And I don't think that there's a real understanding of that, with the general public. But also, I want you just like to speak about the idea that it's okay to get it if you don't die. Like, you hear a lot of people talking about, okay, well, yeah, I got the COVID, but it's just like the flu. I'm not dying, so it's not a big deal. When we don't really know the long-term effects, right?
Right. One very scary thing is that we don't know the long-term effects, and the other thing we don't know is, how do you know if you're going to get this super mild version or not? We used to think that we know, like, if you have certain comorbidities, if you're older or whatever, this puts you at higher risk. But those those stereotypes or cliches don't always hold true. In the peak, we had two 28-year-olds in the ICU who had nothing else besides having a little extra weight on them, no other diseases or comorbidities. So you just really don't know. It has so much to do with things we cannot see in terms of what you're going to get.
yeah.
And so it's really problematic to send that message, which I think was very prevalent in terms of, like, most people will just have a mild cold and they'll be fine. We really don't know.
Yeah. Jam?
I'll hit you with my question after one of our other listeners asked, can you speak to the different tests and the effectiveness of those tests? A reporter said there were 4 tests he knew. I'm not sure. A reporter said they were, I guess, took one test that showed that they came back negative, but they knew they were positive. Can you speak to your preference, I guess, or what you know about the tests?
That's from Karen Andrews.
Yeah. Our tests have gotten a little better in terms of what they are and how fast they come back. Now in our hospital, can probably get a test result back in about a day, which is a big change from before, where we had to wait a couple of days. In the beginning, we were doing swabs through the mouth into the throat and also through the nose, and now the one through the nose is the only one that we use. The accuracy is still only about 70%. And I don't know if any of you have had the test. You really need to go up in there for it to be an accurate sample, and it's highly uncomfortable. And so the person doing the test and the tolerability of the test matters in terms of the accuracy as well, to make sure you're getting a good sample. So at best, we think that the accuracy is about 70 to 80%. We saw many cases where the test result was negative, and we just presumed, for safety purposes and for public health purposes, you have it. I don't care what this test says. You need to protect yourself, your family.
Right.
You had another question, Jim?
Yeah, I had a question, and this was partially addressed earlier, but I wanted to just walk through it a bit. We talked about stress for you personally, but I was also thinking about that, like, how do you handle stress? We talked about that with the kids and you a bit, but feel free to expound. But also, as you guys plan for phase 2, how much is that going into the conversation as for the group that you work with? Like, where does that fall? Has that become more important because of your experiences? Things like that.
Oh, definitely. I really see myself as responsible for these 18 other individuals who I train every year, and so both in this peak as well as in the next one, we were highly aware of the psychological impact of seeing so much death in a day. One of my first year residents this year had like 3 people die in an 8-hour period, and I just had to tell him to like go home and be with other people and not be in this environment. So one of the first things we did is limit their time that they have in the hospital. So my job, I'm there 5 days a week all year round, and usually the residents are there for 2 to 4 weeks at a time, but we told all of the other residents that they cannot be there for more than 1 week at a time physically, both for exposure purposes as well as for like mental health. And we also have these what we call biopsychosocial rounds every Friday, that where we come together as a group now to really talk about the traumas that we have seen and experienced. And I think that will continue as well. We're a pretty tight knit group, and so I think that one of the nicest things about being in a hospital, if you have to be in a hospital, is that it's a team environment, and we really are a family, and we do look out for one another pretty well.
All right. Z?
I was just looking at
kind
one of the. Oh, I'm sorry,
Z.
Lizzie. Z. It sounds
Sorry,
like go
sorry
Z.
about that. Z, yeah.
Okay. To just kind of go back to the actual test, is there any limitation to how often you should be getting this test before it maybe does other damage? You know, like it seems like a pretty, like you said, a pretty rough test to take already. Has there been any danger of, how to sound not stupid, but injuring things while you're actually piercing membranes, piercing a brain? I don't know.
Yeah. I suppose there is a theoretical risk of trauma, but I haven't heard of anyone experiencing lasting trauma. In the tests that I have gotten, it hurt for like a few hours, but no permanent damage done. And I haven't heard of any cases where repeated tests and/or a single test have caused lasting trauma.
So I know that we're aware that it's hit the Black community, the Hispanic community, and people of color pretty hard. Can you tell us what you've seen as far as that?
I mean, that is the reality, and that is potentially like the saddest thing of all, in terms of how this is going to manifest in the future. I mean, of course, we know that these communities are so vulnerable in every context of our daily lives because of the way we treat them as a society. But the virus just made that all the more clear in terms of where do people of color in New York City live? What are their housing situations like? What are their resources? Where do they go to get care? And how is their aftercare, discharge follow up, and access to medical providers after the fact? And we know for years, not just with this virus, that people of color in neighborhoods of, the Bronx, Upper Manhattan, are going to die more so than other people in different communities who are white, have higher socioeconomic status, which we know are also intertwined because of racism. And that's a harder battle to fight, in my opinion, than the virus itself.
Mm.
All right.
The virus will eventually go away. It'll take a while, another year or two, but this is a problem that is going to, I think it's a much bigger problem that's going to take years and years. And with the death of George Floyd, and we've been thinking about it a lot in terms of as a department and trying to address institutional racism within our hospital and trying to do very concrete things to help change little things that happen every day. So, for example, some of the projects that we have been working on is changing the paperwork that our patients who are undocumented and or uninsured get in terms of where they can get care. We are trying to address our institution's report of different lab results. Right now, believe it or not, we get lab results, and this isn't true for just our hospital, this is across the nation, where there's a result for people who are African American, whatever that means, whether they self-identify or someone else assumed they are or whatever, and those who are non-African American. And so we are trying to get all that type of race-related data out because it's, in my opinion, crap to begin with. And that's just one or two examples of the things that we're trying to do now.
We have a couple of minutes. Jam, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, to hop onto that, have you guys had any experience with the new recording guidelines that were required by the White House and the administration? Have you had any direct experience with that and those changes?
We have not as of yet. No.
Cool. Just curious.
Last question, Lizzie.
I was just going to go to, again, one of our viewers. He's asking, as a physician, how do you suggest dealing with family members that say, we are a family, so we don't have to follow the same guidelines while being in this pandemic. We don't have to wear masks. We don't have to socially distance.
And that's from Rupka.
Well, I think the problematic part of that is that, it's a false sense of security that you're going to be safe with the ones you love or that you're used to and live with, because you don't imagine that those people can ever harm you or hurt you in any way. And no one may do it intentionally. And the problem that is that, even us who are studying as scientists or as medical professionals or whatever, we know almost nothing about this disease. So collectively, we have to stay on the side of caution. We have to protect each other. I have not hugged my parents since before this whole pandemic started because I know I'm exposed, even though I've never gotten the virus, because I don't want to risk it.
How often
So
are
what
you
happens
tested?
if you're sharing? Yeah.
Sorry.
How often are you tested?
It varies. They only started testing asymptomatic healthcare professionals at my hospital very, very late in the game, like end of April or May, after our peak had already happened. So I've only been tested twice without symptoms since this whole pandemic started. But I've been lucky enough to never has had symptoms.
All right, Z, I'll give you the final question. Go ahead.
Well, now just to kind of touch back on, socially distancing within families, um, does that extend to like nuclear families, families who are actually living together? Because as you said, living in the Bronx, a lot of us don't have the space to socially distance. So what's the point of being uncomfortable with a mask on and not hugging when you're already in close quarters? Is there really anything more that you can do, I guess, in that case?
I think that it's very heartbreaking for the people who don't have the space to socially distance. But the best that we can do is try to limit our close quarters with one another. If one person's in the house, the other person stay in the back of the house. If you're going to be within 6 feet of each other, wear the mask. At least if you're more than that distance apart from each other, then you can take breathers, take your sips of water, eat your food, then put your mask up, clean all of your surfaces. Your call if you want to wear gloves or not when you're around other people, but we do know that the virus lives on different types of surfaces, some longer than others. For example, that's where that 3-day rule came from with Amazon packages for 72 hours because of how it lasts on cardboard surfaces.
All right. Well, Dr. Elanadham, I truly want to thank you for joining us. This has been so insightful. I know a lot of the people online I know there's still some questions online, so we apologize if we didn't get to all your questions. I still have some more questions, so maybe at some point, if you don't mind, we may bring you back if that's okay and ask some more questions. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
so much.
me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks again. All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Wow.
Very informative.
Wow.
Very informative.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to really hear what's happening because we're not there. We're not on the front lines. We're not seeing these things. We're kind of living in our bubble right now. We're quarantined. We're staying at home, and we're not really seeing what people like Dr. Elanadham are seeing. So.
And I think it helps too because we're all online. We're all communicating through social media, and I think we've all seen people who have been putting forth a lot of false narratives
Yep.
about what's going on with this virus,
Yep.
about a lot of hedonistic, rituals and cures for this virus. Which, again, like she kept emphasizing, this is new to even the doctors and the scientists. They're learning as we're learning, and so I think it's good to hear from someone who is there and who is seeing things up front, close and personal, and giving her feedback and observations about what's really going on.
Yeah, the most important thing I took from it was she said, stay on the side of caution. We don't know. You have to, masks may not even solve the problem, but why not wear it so that we can at least try to, anyway, we could go on. We could probably talk some more about this, but let's move on to the hot topics.
Let me speak to Stephen Thompson real quick.
Okay.
From what she was talking about, from my experiences, depending upon the surface, they had done some research to figure out how long. What was her comment about Amazon packages, 3 days? And so what I think she was trying to speak to was that they did some research on how long that the virus would last on different surfaces. And for cardboard, that was 3 days, 72 hours, versus, and I do not remember, countered like a harder surface like a rock or something else that you might encounter on that surface, but that was what she was speaking to. Yeah. We can see if we can find some more information and post it to the site though for you.
Yeah, we can do that. The Facebook page. All right, guys, we got to move on to the hot topics. So let's try to move through these kind of quick. All right.
Right.
So let me tell you how the hot topics work. Each host comes with hot topics they want to discuss, mostly based on discussions with you, the viewers, or they just decide to pick a topic that they want to talk about. I'll pick one of the hosts to start us off. They'll tell us what's going on, then ask a question to the other co-hosts. We'll start the timer for the discussion, and we'll talk it out. Once time is up, we'll see this, and we'll move on to the next person in the next conversation. All right, so remember, viewers, just like our last segment, your comments and questions do drive the conversation, so continue to comment away. Today, we are starting with Z.
Z girl.
Is this a
Yay!
truth? Is it a lie or is it a shenanigans?
This is straight up shenanigans.
Straight up
All right.
shenanigans.
So,
Shenanigans.
straight up shenanigans. So to continue our COVID discussions, we're going to go back to the whole mask thing with schools reopening. So we have this high school in Georgia that reopened, and as you can maybe see from that crowd, all but 3 students were wearing masks. Okay, and what's actually very interesting was the student who posted that picture actually got suspended for posting that
That
picture.
was crazy.
Now none of
Yep.
yeah, so none of these kids are being punished for not wearing masks, but someone's being punished for whistleblowing the fact that they're not enforcing the mandate. But anyway, so and also I just want to mention that Georgia, this particular school, has very strict dress codes, which they have no problem enforcing. Okay, so my question to the panel is, oh gosh, now I have to go back. Hold on 1 second. I lost my question. No.
That's all right.
Okay, right. I'm sorry. No, so my question to the panel is, uh, do you think that this is really an issue of not being able to enforce the mandate, or is this just a further politicizing of the issue? And now this is just the administration saying, you know what, this is not something that we care about or believe in, so we're not going to enforce it. And the second to that question is, do you think that this, politicizing of the issue is going to trickle down to the students and cause, violent encounters and like how is this going to play out?
Let's start with Lizzie.
I think as a school and as an administration, you have to lay out the rules and you have to set the example. All of us went to school. At least none of you are homeschooled, right? I know these 2 weren't. Z, were you homeschooled? So all of us went to school. All of us had to adhere to a certain, not in Mr. Dahlgren's class, you weren't homeschooled.
I just came in for that one class.
I just came to play cards.
Adhere to a certain amount of rules throughout our entire educational history. And like Z pointed out, there are rules about dress codes, there are rules about smoking, there are rules about alcohol, there are rules about everything in school. And so I think you are full of BS if you say, okay, we can monitor all of these other things, but we can't monitor whether or not you wear a mask coming through the door, whether you keep that mask on in a classroom. I mean, I'm a professor, and before the pandemic, one of the big pet peeves for me was having students come into my classroom with their phones out. Put your phone away. As easy as it was for me to tell my students to put your phone away, turn it off, I don't want to see it, you can do the same thing with a mask. Yep. I don't want to see you without a mask on. Yep. Put it on your face. Don't come into my classroom without a mask. Don't take it off during my classroom. And so I do think that this has been politicized. I do think that this has become a partisan issue where people are taking sides based on political views alone. And it's sad because now that same Georgia school, we found out today, it came out today, 9 students so far from that picture have tested positive of COVID.
Wow.
9.
Wow.
So yeah, it's sad.
And interestingly enough, I just wanted to interject too, and I don't know if you noticed, but it's not a fair fight. It seems like the majority is anti-mask. So what's going to happen to those students who are wearing their masks? Just something else to kind of throw in there.
All right, Jam.
Go ahead, Jam. Sorry.
No worries. So I guess I have a different point of view. I'm a glass half full sort of guy, even if the glass is empty. So what I'm saying is, I think that, for example, there are 9 kids who tested positive. I think that if there are enough aware kids, and no matter what side of the social a-hole spectrum you fall on, I think you're paying attention when you're in high school. I think when 9 of your friends test positive, a lot of those people, a lot of the jokers, are people who are like, fence sitters will be like, yeah, that mask thing. And then the young lady who was suspended, even though I think they lifted that suspension, I thought, after they reviewed the
they did.
I think that they will garner not so much for the point they're wearing a mask, but for the fact that they become an example of all the stuff, including possible death, that could happen. I think we are going to see examples of what we would consider a positive response, which is more mask wearing and awareness of that space, because people don't want to die. This is like when you see, I think it's great in a way when you come across all these articles where people are like, I thought it was a joke until me and my whole family who had a party naked last night in my backyard came down with coronavirus. And so I think this is a great example of that. Like those kids, whether or not their parents tell them, whether or not the teachers are like, we're watching you, they're going to be like, I'm going to wear a mask. Please give me 6 feet. Thank you. Except maybe my girlfriend, because we can go into the back. But, I think that's going to work. Just saying. Glass half full.
So look, I got into a relatively heated discussion online with one of these like conspiracy theorists and constitutionalists and people that tell you that you're free to literally do anything you want. It's unconstitutional to mandate mask closures, quarantines. It's all that's unconstitutional. And I'm okay if someone feels that way about their constitution. If you want to, fight for your right to infect other people, okay, fine, whatever. But the thing that really pisses me off about these people is when they try to get others to join their cause, right? So I explained, like, my response was, okay, forget about this deep state BS, right? Let's look at just 3 people in the room, me, you, somebody else, friends even, right? You have no idea who's sick, but you could be, right? And it could kill me, or it can kill the other person, or infect. It could go so far as to infect my family, right? And then kill somebody there, right? If you want to be free to risk my life and my family's life, fine. I'm just going to get the hell away from you, right? But then what really pisses me off is that's not enough for these people. They go and try to convince that third person in the room to also risk my life, right? That pisses me off, right? Hell no, that goes beyond. That's where I draw the line of respect. If you're 3 people in a room and because I step away from you and you go do your thing, fine. But then you're trying to convince the other person to also risk my life. That's a problem for me. That's an absolute problem.
To
me.
add to that, Neo, my problem is the people who want to get violent. Right. It's one thing if you want to walk into a store not wearing a mask. Okay, I can avoid you. I can try and walk around you. But if you're going to literally confront me, forget the person who asked you to wear a mask. Okay, maybe we should all be minding our own business. I don't know. But if I'm wearing a mask, like that child in Florida, the man who went up to a child in a restaurant and spit in his face and yelled at him because he had a mask on, like, what do you have to do that? If you have the right to not wear a mask, don't try to beat me up because I want to.
Right.
See, also, learn the Constitution. Learn the Constitution.
Yeah,
like all these against my constitutional right. If I have a private business, I can mandate that you have clothes on when you come into my shop, that you have shoes on when you come into my shop, and that you have a mask on.
Preach.
That is my right.
Preach.
And if you don't agree, get the step in. Go.
Well, I guess I'm completely on board with you guys, except for it doesn't make me as mad. I feel that people still have the right to be free and try to convince others of their ignorance, as long as they do it non-violently. That is what our Constitution lets us do.
Or just do it outside of my place of business. If I tell you to put mask on, and you don't want to be free outside. Be free outside.
Damn, I want to fight with you some more, Jam. I disagree with you.
I want
to. We gotta move on though.
Wait. Before we move on, because my husband actually wrote in a question. So
okay.
Shout him out. Jeff wants to know what about when.
Sorry.
He wants to know what about when the students are commuting to and from school? Will they continue social distancing and wearing masks just on the commute?
Hopefully.
Yeah, Lizzie, I know you feel that. I know you're feeling that.
Well, this is my whole thing about me personally telling Howard University, because they gave us an option before they made their definitive decision. Me telling them I will not be in the classroom in the fall. And that's one of the reasons why. Like, even if I can control what happens in my classroom, I can't control what happens before you get to my classroom. And we're talking about a university where they're dorms. So, yeah, they may be going from class to class, social distancing, wearing their masks, wiping off their desks. But what do you think they're doing in the dorms? I was a freshman in college. I know what we do as freshmen, first time away from home in college. There will be no social distancing. There will be no mask wearing. There will be no humping and bumping and grinding and drinking and smoking, like all of that. And then you come to my class the next day and infect me and everyone else.
Which brings me to my statement. Why are you going to look at me like I'm crazy when I said that about high school kids and their booze? See, you're wrong.
Okay.
Secondly,
wait, what?
We got to move on. So good.
Secondly, I have a response for Fred. I would say something. This is a perfect place for your mama joke, but I have constraints. I have constraints.
Anyway, Kevin Thatson also said freedom without responsibility, shame. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Just tell Jeff, like, I agree with him. Like, it's only control from what you can see. You can't control what happens outside of your vision. And that's, I think, something that a lot of people don't take into consideration.
All right, Jam.
Even without the bumping and grinding, that's a concern we have for our kids. You can't be on Metro. You can't deal with people. No.
All right, I'm shutting it down. Jam, next topic.
You know how these DC kids act on the Metro.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Jam. Jam, truth, lies, or shenanigans.
All right. Oh, my turn? Oh, yep. This is a truth because it's the truth, but Jesus isn't a shenanigan. So y'all familiar? It's a shenanigan. So you guys are familiar with the PPP, right? Paycheck.
Yes.
Oh, what's that?
Protection program.
Is that with
right?
PPP?
Yeah, you know me. So, my boy Trump.
I'm glad you call him your boy.
My boy, we grew up in the same hood. He went to the Wilson. This Paycheck Protection Program, which was meant to save jobs and small businesses, we found out that it was being taken advantage of by larger businesses, and there are reasons they could do that. Right. We found out the Catholic Church was able to get some of that money and use it to either reimburse themselves or help pay off some of the lawsuits they had against them. But we got something new. In case you guys were concerned that this was helping us beat the Chinese, we just found out that there were several Chinese government-owned companies, including one aviation company that got over 10 million of the PPP loan money. They were able to do this because, like everyone else, all they had to do was apply as long as they're in the spot.
Tell Mel to turn this segment off.
Right. So my question,
she's already pissed.
I can imagine.
My question to you guys is, did you get any money, like, for yourself personally? Because everybody else did.
Yeah, can I tell you?
They were giving money out like crazy. It went to everybody, but the people supposed to go to.
Yeah, I didn't get no money.
It went to everybody but the people it was supposed to go to.
And that's so frustrating. It's such BS and so frustrating because we are watching our government turn its back on U.S. citizens for the sake of the mighty dollar, but then want to hold us accountable for our poverty, for our shortcomings, for not being able to pay rent and catch up on our bills, especially when you hear a lot of people who are a part of the Trump mindset or the upper class or what have you, and they want to blame, well, they should have prepared, they should have done this, they should have done that. How could we? When y'all are giving money to yourselves, when you're giving money to the Russians and to the Chinese versus the small business person in the community who did everything right. It's sad.
It is.
Mind you, they still, anyone who got less than 150,000, they still don't have to show. They still haven't shown who got that money. There's only businesses over 150,000 who borrowed they even had to show the tracks. So everything below that is still a mystery. So
I see you, Chad.
but anyway, Neo, Z, do you guys have any opinions on this
Z,
that you want to share?
I'll let you go.
None of this surprises me. Maybe I've just become so apathetic. Maybe I'm just kind of like watching the world burn at this point, because I'm one of the I'm the middle class. I'm the middle class. Like I said last week and the week before that, I made all of my choices in life from the time I graduated high school, because I was promised, there was a social contract. If I went to a good school, not just, a community college, but a university, a private university, I was guaranteed a certain salary. Those loans, oh, don't worry about signing your life away. You're going to make so much money, it'll be fine. Oh, you'll be able to afford a house. None of this is true. And I'm the one holding the bag. People like myself, the middle class, the ones with no kids. I'm not enjoying my taxes. I'm not getting school. None of these things that I'm paying into do I take out of. You know what I mean? And I'm left holding the bag. And when I hear about companies getting all of these bailouts, and what's coming around the corner, Christmas time, end of year bonus, end of year review, I guarantee already companies are talking about you may have to take pay cuts, and it's going to be a rough year. Why? You're getting bailout money. What is your problem? And then we want to talk about the $600 that people are getting for unemployment. Just it gets me so mad, because it's like, what do you really think that $600 is doing for people, besides maybe keeping them from getting their lights cut off, maybe giving them half of their rent for the month?
Right.
It makes me sick. And at this point, I'm just watching the world burn.
And I just want to reiterate, when she talks about the $600 unemployment benefit, without that $600, so it expired last week. So last week was the first week that people got unemployment benefits without that 600 surplus. Without it, it caps off at no more than $375 per week.
In most places.
You cannot live off of that in this country. You cannot. No. And so for all these people who are sitting back thinking, oh, well, they're making more money because they're not working. No, they're not. No, they're not. You cannot.
And evictions are being allowed now?
Just so Trump did sign an executive order or two trying to address this.
Yep.
And so his solution was $400. Now, just so you know, the issue.
$500.
Oh,
it was 500. It was 500.
I read 400 too.
I did too. But but that money is coming from, as opposed to, I'm not quite sure where it originally came from, but the money they're pulling from now, he's trying to pull through FEMA. And so there's additional, this is a FEMA pot he's pulling through from. And so with that, it'll last for about 4 or 5 weeks, they expect. But also, he did try to put a moratorium on evictions. But to do that, he can't do it directly. So he's just directed places like HUD, that are federal agencies, to find ways to try to dissuade that. I just wanted to put that information out there so that we were on the same page.
Joyce's boy is hooking
but also,
everybody up.
Back off that for your boy.
That's right.
With the money,
we grew up
with the money that he did with the executive order, the new money now, the 400 or 500, whatever it is, a lot of that is going to come from state funds versus the government surplus. And a lot of states are saying, we don't have that money. We don't have that to give. This is supposed to be a federal issue. So then there's that.
And also, he's also trying to do a payroll tax cut for people who make under $100,000 a year. And this is important because it comes from Medicaid and Social Security. But the trick is, it's not a real tax cut. They're just putting those taxes on hold until December, when there will become a balloon payment of all the money that you haven't had to pay comes due.
All right.
And his thing is,
the U.S. loves
I want to get some quick
payment.
comments in before we run out of time.
So his thing is, if he gets reelected, he'll make it permanent. But till then, it's a balloon payment due on your next year.
Oh, I mean, my frustration with the GOP in general is that, they always claim to be the fiscally responsible party, but they're always diverting money towards capitalism, towards themselves. they're always diverting contracts, monies towards benefiting themselves individually. And that's just it seems to be a typical thing of the GOP, even though they claim they don't want government, but they basically use the government.
It's easy to be fiscally responsible with other people's money.
Exactly. Right.
And that's how the rich stay rich.
It's like put it in their own pocket.
That's right.
Aristocrats.
That's right.
Aristocrats.
Ask Remy. Ask Remy.
Break it down, Gingy.
Karen Yvette said she heard $400 as well.
I think it is 400. So my mistake, Jam. My mistake, Jam.
And then Fred said, "Let Liz speak. Stop cutting Liz off. Let her speak."
I'm saying when matching
I think he was talking to Jam. I'm pretty sure he was talking to Jam.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
I was just trying to explain what she was saying. Thank you.
All right, Lizzie.
Oh, don't mansplain. Don't mansplain. She can speak for herself.
What Z was saying was that she did not need
carryover from last Sunday. This is a carryover from last Sunday. Get it out, dog. Get it out.
I'm so mad.
All right, Lizzie.
So mad, yo.
Truth, lies, or shenanigans? Truth, lies, shenanigans. What you got?
Unfortunately, this is a necessary truth that we need to confront. And it is segueing, piggybacking off of what Z was talking about, what our guest host this evening, Dr. Hima, was talking about. So earlier this week, Michelle Obama admitted that she has been experiencing low-grade depression as a result of the quarantine and the pandemic, as a result of the ongoing protests over the summer regarding social injustice, and as a result of this administration. So we're going to watch a clip of her talking about this a little bit.
I know that I am dealing with some form of low-grade depression, not just because of the quarantine, but because of the racial strife and just seeing this administration, watching the hypocrisy of it, waking up to how this administration has or has not responded, waking up to yet another story of a black man or a black person somehow being dehumanized or hurt or killed or falsely accused of something. It is exhausting. The vast discomfort with the notion that a black man could be sitting in the highest level of office. We saw that. We saw the signs. We saw the nooses.
And so it resonated and triggered me earlier this week when I saw her make these comments, when I saw the stories about it, because it allowed a little bit of self-reflection. And I think during this pandemic, a lot of us haven't been really, checking in on ourselves. We've been on the go so much, just trying to maintain, make it from day to day, that we haven't, or checking on other people. We've been checking on our loved ones, our friends, but we haven't been doing any self-evaluation. And so my question to you all in terms of what she's bringing up, what she's talking about, in terms of whether it's low grade or high grade depression, how are you guys? Like, what do you think about that topic as it relates to the pandemic?
Let's start with Z.
So I was sharing with the panel before the podcast started that today was the first day I washed my hair in almost 3 weeks. And for those that know me, my hair is my crowning glory. I mean, you know how we all have that one thing that we don't have to work too hard for? Like, that's my hair. So it's, I love styling it and washing it. And I realized, I didn't care. Like, I didn't care. For what? For who's going to see me? So that I can socially distance from my husband, so that I can watch CNN and get pissed off and cry again. Like, for what? So I don't see anybody at work when I drag my ass in. Ooh, I cursed. My first time.
She did. She called herself out. I wouldn't even notice it. You would have got away with that one.
That's how depressed I am. I'm telling on myself. But yes, I realized recently that I'm definitely experiencing a low-grade depression. Exercise, checking in with friends, the usual things that make me happy are just They're not. They're just not. I'm finding myself falling into a pit of hopelessness. That sounds so dark, and I don't mean it to, but I almost, you know what it feels like? Like, I feel like I have to get all of my good times in before November 4th.
Yeah.
And that is keeping me up at night. It's making me sick. It's making me depressed. It's making me overeat and then not eat. Yeah. So yeah. That's how I've been.
That's real. It's not.
Just to quickly piggyback off Z, so I'm back to my head wrap again, but it's because, I have a flood in my building, so I have no water for the second time this week. And so, I wasn't able to wash my hair today. And so in the midst of the pandemic, before, when we first started this show, I wasn't doing my hair like Z. I wasn't washing my hair on the regular because I was just so like, I can't deal. And then I'm like, okay, I need to make, a concerted effort to be presentable to my students that I'm Zooming every day and to my boys on the show. This is before you came in, Z, my gents on the show. And then you came in and then we have guests. Okay. So you need to be presentable. And so it hurt my feelings today that I couldn't wash my hair this morning, that I couldn't, do my due. And so I almost wanted, I started Neo to call out on the show, but I have no water. I can't flush my toilet. And I think under normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But with everything else that's going on with it, I was just like, and it took Mike Winter. Mike Winter was like, just slow down, take a deep breath, and just do it. But so I feel you on the hair thing, for women, especially for women of color. This is this is all. And
listen,
so yeah,
Sunday is a blessed day. Yeah, it's a wash and go day. It's a special day for hair. So I get you.
So I had a moment.
I was just gonna say, Z, it doesn't sound dark to me. It sounds real. It sounds it's what you're feeling. It's how you are. I mean, it sounds real. It's what people are dealing with. Jam, did you want to jump in?
Jam.
So, wow, how are we doing, huh? I mean, we talked about this, I guess, when the show first started. Like, personally, I still have had more time to spend with my family than I think I've had, especially my kids, than I've had probably in the last 6 or 7 or 8 years. So to me, that is one of the most valuable gifts, if you can consider it that I've had. Like, my schedule just was whack. Like, day starts early, get the kids in, we're running here, we're running there. So to me, this whole time has been a blessing, where I understand it hasn't been for other people. Having said that, as things have gone on, my wife and I have tried to find things more engaging and redo our lives. And so one of the things that we've tried to do to be different and learn is take up Tai Chi. And so we got this whole Tai Chi in the morning process that we've been working on, and it's exciting. And I mean, it's, you're like, I can do Kung Fu, and then, like, somebody walks up to you, like, no, I can't, but I think I can. And so that's, but, and that's the real stuff to me. And then I lost my job, like, as you know, and I found a replacement job. But when we're talking about how much unemployment is, I know exactly how much unemployment is.
Enough for a 2-piece and a biscuit.
It's like, so who's gonna get the ramen? And so like, and so, but again, even with that, like, we've been lucky enough that we've been in a place where I could start planning and be effective. Sorry, Nia, I took up your time. But yeah, so I have a lot of feelings about this time, but I'm doing better than I think a lot of people are, and I'm thankful for that. And so I think I have a bit of understanding for that. Nia, what you got?
I'll keep mine brief. I mean, I see how it affects people around me, and I see it's been tough. I mean, the thing that bothers me most, or that I struggle with most, is and we talked about it a little earlier, was the social affection. I'm a person who love hugs. I do. I love hugs. So I mean, and I think with the kids and everything, and that's the thing I've struggled with the most. You know, I will say this show has kind of been my therapy, so it's given me some things to do. It's taken
Come
up a
on,
lot of my
Lizzie, shake it
time.
out, shake it out,
Yeah,
girl.
come on, Liz.
Come on,
Work it.
Lizzie, come on. Break it down, break it
You're
down,
a
break it down, break it down.
So I will say the show's been my therapy. So I've been, that's all I've got. So,
No, you know what,
No,
Neil?
so
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Neil for that because that was one of the things that I had said to him earlier that, this show kind of saved me. This show gave me a voice. I'm going to cry too. Now you're going to make me cry, Liz. But no, because, when I found you guys, I had, George Floyd had just been murdered. And I had all of this, like, between COVID and it was just like I had so much here. And this show was an outlet. So thank you. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Jam. Thank you, East, for welcoming me
yeah,
because this is hard. And
you've
we
been a
all
godsend to
we're all
us.
gonna have PTSD.
We love you.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I think it's been cathartic in ways Neo like
of course.
wasn't expecting it to be. Like this nonsense for like with all this racial stuff, son of a, you know, like if there was no other way to express it, come on. Mike is talking about unemployment check as a side note being 1/10 of his salary. Mike, you are preaching to the choir, baby. You are preaching to the choir.
For real.
Lizzie, you have one more thing you wanted to say?
Just one final point in that, and I think Jam may have mentioned it, and definitely Michelle Obama mentioned it before she talked about this week. I thought that I was managing well. I've said repeatedly how I don't leave my house. So I was social distancing perfectly from everyone, probably with the exception of Mike Winter, because, that's my bestie. He lives around the corner. But other than going across the street, I wasn't going anywhere. So I'm just like, okay, I'm fine. I was keeping myself busy. I've been teaching all summer, and then doing the show. So with the addition of that, I was busy all the time. But it didn't occur to me that mentally that I was going into the dark place. It didn't occur to me until last Sunday when I went to the social distancing picnic for my 95-year-old family member, and I had all of this immense anxiety. It was just, I mean, my other bestie, the night before, she was like, I know you're stressed. I know you're worried about tomorrow. It's just a picnic. You'll be okay. And I had to talk myself into going. And it took a lot for me to go out there. But then when I got back home, I took 2 showers, like I was all over the place mentally, and then just didn't want to see anyone. And then when Michelle said, I think I'm suffering some type of low grade depression, that's when I'm like, you know what? Maybe you are, Elizabeth Eleanor, and you need to start focusing on that and addressing that, because the way to get out of it is just not to keep yourself busy. That's not changing anything. I'm at the point now where I feel like I'm borderline agoraphobic. Like I don't want to leave my house. Like I'm just like, you people are infected. Let me stay in here with the cat and we're good. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. I like Z was saying, like in terms of appearance, I mean, my God, I hate the way I look now. Hate it. And that's something that I think a lot of people are going through because we haven't been able to work out. We haven't been able to take walks and get sun. And like I have a lot of makeup on now. I look tan now, but no, I'm pale ale right now. So it's been a lot. So when Michelle Obama came out with this week, I'm like, okay, finally someone is saying what I've been denying, kind of. And I think I needed to hear it, just to kind of like, try to work out of what we've been going through. And again, this is just the first phase. We don't know what phase 2 is going to be.
We don't.
So it's better that we try to prepare ourselves better now for what could be possibly coming.
Which is another reason it pisses me off that these people don't care. I mean, because there are other side effects to this thing. It's not even just, I mean, there's other health issues to being forced into these situations of trying to keep ourselves safe from COVID while everybody's out partying, spreading it around on willy-nilly, not caring. And
Right.
Z, I think you have one more thing you wanted to say. I know.
It's just well, it's interesting. It's interesting that Lizzie said that it almost is making her agoraphobic, where I'm almost having, because I totally feel you on everything you're feeling, and I'm having almost the opposite reaction, where it's like it's making me want to just go out even more.
Right.
Like hell, the world's ending.
Get it.
Yeah, like and like you said, I don't think either one is 100% right or healthy or the correct coping mechanism. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think we're all going to be in therapy. Therapy, if you're trying to look for something to go into, hey, Cutie Pie! You know what? That just wiped all the tears away.
There you go. There we go. All right.
I'll just leave it at that. I think if anybody's looking for something to major in, psychology, psychiatry, therapy, the world is going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, the good thing is that's it for our hot topics, but stick around because we always end our show with something fun to lighten things up. So
Where they cheat. They always cheat.
actually, I might get in trouble for cheating. I might get in trouble for cheating this time. All right. Today's game is Ask. All right. Now this will be rapid fire questions. Rapid fire questions. I'll go around the horn and ask each of you a question one by one. You'll quickly try to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind, and then I'll ask the next person the next question. So no scoreboard today. The winner will be completely and utterly subjective, picked by me, based upon whoever gave the best answers the fastest. All right, but the viewers, you're free to vote. I'll take a look at the comments before I decide on the final winner. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys all ready? So this is an example question. I'm going to go around starting with Lizzie, then Jam, then Z. Go as fast as we can. All right?
All right.
All right. All right. Where would you hide a body, Lizzie?
In the Anacostia River.
That's a good one. All right. Jam. What do you keep inside your bedside table?
A bottle of old. I don't know the name of any liquors.
You ain't gotta lie. You gotta lie, Craig.
old whiskey bones.
Okay. All right. Z, do you believe in the UFO?
Absolutely. I just came off of one.
Oh. Lizzie, the police are asking, where was your best buddy last night? What will you tell them?
In bed.
Okay.
In bed.
Jam, what unusual animal would you like to have?
I'd like to have.
You have some unusual animals.
Don't be like that. Don't talk about my family. Sorry, a pygmy hedgehog.
A what?
Pygmy hedgehog.
Pygmy hedgehog. Okay.
That looks like a pygmy hedgehog.
All right, Z. What is the best plan for a Friday night?
Netflix and chill, yo.
Okay, Netflix and chill. All right, Lizzie. Who is the best alpha male in the room? Oh, there's only two to choose from.
Z.
Me.
That's the best answer. All right, let's go.
I second the motion. Oh, wait.
All right, Jam. Blondes or brunettes?
Brunettes.
All right. And Z, did you ever have sex at a first date?
How we go what?
Right. We're like,
no answer.
I've never had sex.
Never. You're virgin. Virgin.
I'm a virgin.
Great answer.
Not with
All right,
the first date.
It's the last round. Last round. So
Worst segue ever. The worst segue ever.
it's the last round. So if you're online, start voting now. All right. If you become president, this is Lizzie. If you would become president, what would be your first decision?
to alleviate all of my debt for life.
Your debt.
Hey, just yours?
I know, right? Come on.
Trump already did that. That's not even innovative. Trump already did that.
How
What?
about us?
All right, Jam. If you would ever come back from the dead as an evil spirit, who would you haunt?
Oh man, each and every
know.
Republican would get like 5 minutes a day at least. Good hard time Democrating on
Each and
them.
every Republican. Wow. Okay.
Each and every Republican.
Okay. All right. Last question. Z, would you endure longer without food or without a phone?
Oh, without food.
Yeah.
Without food.
Oh, you-
I got plenty of storage. I got plenty of fat storage already, so. But I need that phone, dude. I need that phone.
All right. All right. So that's our game. That's our game. Good job. All right. I don't see any votes online. Nobody voted. Okay. I'm going to pick.
Kevin voted for college debt.
I'm going to pick Jam.
Oh, all right.
Good answers,
all right.
Jam.
All right.
Good
Thank
answers.
you, sir.
Very
Thank you.
creative. Good job. Good job. I would have picked Lizzie, but Lizzie won last time. So
Okay, it works for me.
she won. You know, she won the Bible trivia. Lizzie won.
I know.
Bible
I
I
saw
saw.
that.
One of us
That's
don't
what
need.
it
Yeah.
is. When you're so against something, you can't effectively argue against it unless you know it. So there you go.
See?
Facts. The more
I got it.
know.
Oh wait. I'm going to change my vote. Karen Andrews says Lizzie gets the vote. I'm
That's
going
right.
with Karen
What about
Andrews.
Liana Jones said Jam.
Oh,
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Jam, you get the final thought.
Steph,
You
where
win.
are you with my vote?
All right, let's go.
Where's the-
All right. So one more complaint. One more complaint
Oh,
about.
wait. We're getting some more votes here. Hold on. I want some more votes before I decide. For sure.
Oh man.
I got votes.
We got some.
We're running out of time.
Liz is-
We got votes
I got
today.
votes.
Oh, Z. Uh-oh.
Z got votes. Z got votes.
See how he
They're
cheats
all from the
The Bible got
See how
votes too, though. Who's gonna rep for the Bible? Who's gonna rep for the Bible?
Bible, the Bible.
I'm going to count up the votes by the time we get to the end. So before we close out, let's get some shout outs in. We'll do some shout outs and then I'll tell you who won.
Oh, shout out to Fred. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Mike, of course. Except for your vote. Your vote sucks. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Mania. Thank you. I am not going to pronounce your name. I'm going to let Antonio do that one.
Ade.
That's my boy Ade.
Ade.
That's Ade.
I tried that the last
Oh.
time.
Okay. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate you. Thank you, Ty, for great with the kids. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Liana. And Reuven, what up? So I think that's just about everybody. Oh, Daria.
Z, you got some shout outs?
Hunter's mom, hey, and my coworker, hey, Daria.
Z, you got some shout outs?
Yeah. Shout out to Yashika. Thanks for listening, girl. I hope you got that puppy.
Lizzie, shout outs?
I'm gonna give another shout out to Daria Winter. She is my bestie's mom, but she's also my coworker in the English department at Howard, and she always keeps me on check, on point. Make sure I come to the meetings. I turn in all the paperwork. So shout out to Daria.
All right. And I want to shout out my sister. Today's her birthday, Rupka. She watches the show almost. She's almost every show.
Yeah.
Hope you're having a wonderful birthday, Rupka. Oh, and she wanted me to call out Jam for calling her Rebecca.
I called her Becca.
Yeah,
I
she
her
called
Becca.
her that too. She was like, "Who is he talking about?"
Yeah, what is
It's posted on her name, man.
Her
Tell
name
me
is
how it is.
Rupka.
Neil, what did you do?
Mansplain her name. Mansplain her name to her.
Okay, Becca,
Mansplain
sit
her
down.
name.
This is going to take a while on your birthday. So when you spell your name like that,
All right. So I'm going with the votes online. It looks like Lizzie is the official winner of the game. So we're going with the votes online. Good job, Lizzie.
Whoop, Lizzie.
Get your final thought together.
Yay!
All right. So that's our show. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. We hope you had a good time, maybe learned something, gained a new perspective. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe at TLS Live Show. And make sure you check out our Facebook page. Liz Z is really crushing it. Lots of great discussions, lots of great information. We're back Wednesday, 8 p.m. with Liz Z, Rob B, East, and myself. We'll have another COVID Chronicles segment, talking to a nurse performing the COVID testing. So be sure to come back and hear her story. Again, 8 p.m. Wednesday. Liz Z, I'm giving you the final thought.
Yes, everyone, again, continue the Sunday Funday vibe. We just want you guys to be safe. We're not trying to be preachy, but we just want you to do the best that's for you and for the people around you. So please adhere to all of the social distancing rules, wear your mask, and also take care of that mental health. I learned, and Michelle Obama learned, and a lot of us learned today, that it's about the physical and the mental. We want us to be healthy all the way around. We'll see you on Wednesday again.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great time, guys. See you Wednesday.